Many Sonic games and their qualities come into question time and time again, sometimes right after their release, other times years later. No game is without their critics, and it's uncommon to find any game in the series that doesn't receive rather mixed reception. Even so, there's one Sonic title that continues to get praise even till this day after 20 years, that being the highly acclaimed and beloved Sonic Rush. Sonic Rush might be the Sonic game with the most aura. Period. Hardcore fans love it, casuals love it, even non-Sonic fans seem to hold it in very high regard without having touched the game. Despite it not being the best Sonic game and having glaring flaws, one thing props it up, something that bleeds into the title's very core. Style. Completely unashamed and ridiculously flamboyant. Hey, it's Not a Place Games, aka MPG. One conversation that gets brought up pretty often in the Sonic community is that the most recent games have lacked panache, something blatantly captivating and stimulating in the best of ways. These games have their fans, but end up being largely forgotten or dismissed by most for one reason or another. Rush, on the other hand, released in 2005 and still gets its flowers, maybe more often than is natural, I think. Take it from me, I've talked about Sonic Rush more than any other individual game on my channel. Not just because I find the game fun, but because of the aesthetic and style it brings to my videos. What can I say? Sonic Rush is not easily ignored, and I believe that's a key factor that kept it culturally relevant. I think it's about time we talk about it. Let's get started and explore the unrivaled finesse Sonic Rush has. First things first, style. A particular manner or technique by which something is done, created, or performed. AKA having a way of doing things that can be easily identified and reflected on. Unsurprisingly, style is a big thing the Sonic series is known for, and Rush totally capitalized on that, better than a huge portion of other Sonic titles, I'd argue. For many other Sonic games, there's a certain level of finesse in certain parts of the title, but it never feels like it translates well to the rest of the game, for one reason or another. Sonic Rush is up to its ears in personality and distinct brilliance, so much unchallenged flair that I don't think I've seen outside of maybe Sonic X Shadow Gens or Unleashed. Rush isn't just a game, but a unique, remarkable experience that is not like any other game, not even its sequel. Firstly, Sonic Rush revamped traditional 2D Sonic, incentivizing taking higher, faster paths that require precision by adding new mechanics into the game. Boosting and tricking. I know a lot of people don't like the boost formula, but it works so well in Rush. Boosting encourages players to curb stomp badniks in order to get even faster and be more invulnerable in their playthrough. Being fast and watching everything pass by you at the speed of sound is something a lot of people find awfully enamoring, and honestly I get it. Hitting tricks is also pretty essential, as it also increases your boost gauge and allows you to reach parts of a level you wouldn't be able to otherwise. Players can chain tricks and hot jumps to get to higher pathways and feel like a real genius, or use it to skillfully dodge the jaws of death. You can even hit tricks while on grind rails, and as I said in my first Rush video, if there was to ever be a Jet Set Radio game but with cute anthropomorphic animals, Sonic Rush would be it. Giving the player the ability to improvise as they see fit while playing the game is a great way to encourage individuality, and make them feel pretty badass. Everything in the game is authentic and fast-paced, sure, but it's on the player to give their playthrough some style and personality. For example, there are other things to be found in the game that give it so much more of an identity than just these major mechanics. There are a few tricks and quirks that assist the player in stylizing their gameplay if they're experimental enough. For instance, spin dashing for a split second before jumping up and hitting the ground running gives the player an unusual burst of speed. It can definitely assist in boss fights and help players give their fights a bit more of a personal touch. All in all, the controls for Rush are responsive and it feels as though you're truly controlling everything your character is doing. No need to do QTEs or use controls without much thought put into them. The interactivity that comes with boosting and tricking helps the game stand out as something both distinct and instantly gratifying. The voice lines might get pretty goddamn annoying sometimes, but they only help assure that the player is doing something right. Pure silence means you're not hitting that shit hard enough. If you were to show veteran Rush gameplay to someone who likes the game but hasn't played it, or plays it casually, most of the time they'll be thinking, what the hell is going on? And that's how it should feel. If you're an advanced player, you should feel like what you're doing is something that not only a lot of people struggle to do, but speaks to your character. And if you're casual or haven't touched the game at all, you should feel amazed and immersed, maybe even want to play it more or for the first time so that you can feel just as cool. The results screen in the game also tells the player how well they did, for example, how much they tricked or how fast they got through a stage. While it doesn't exactly tally up the score by how uniquely they play the game, it gives them more incentive to try harder and do better. Maybe it even gives certain players the desire to make it an extra challenge and show off while emanating absolute perfection. A ton of people play games to prove they can perfect them, and Rush is a pretty good challenge for players like that. I personally prefer the grading system too. Give me something else to brag about. I already feel like hot shit just playing the game, but getting an S rank at the end of it really does something for my ego. Even finishing the level gives you a nice little treat. The faster you pass the ring at the end, the faster it'll spin. It always scratched my brain when it happened and honestly offered something great in something so seemingly insignificant. Anyway, games like Rush that take skill while also incentivizing style and individuality is like a package of Pop-Tarts coming with 3 tarts instead of 2. Sorry, I'm really bad at analogies. In short, you really gotta play a lot to get as good as you can and look super cool for clips, which I can appreciate. Rush may not have exactly introduced tricking, but it certainly introduced boosting and was extremely influential on the rest of the series. Almost every major Sonic game after Rush features the boost mechanic, and while it usually operates a bit differently, you can't deny that the mechanic was so cool that other games couldn't help but use it. Being an inspiration has a lot to do with style, right? If you're great, people want to copy you. It's only natural. Sonic Rush isn't only inspiring though, it's also taking inspiration and improving on it. The game's special stages, for example, are super creative while also being a callback to Sonic 2. I won't spend too long talking about this, but the premise is more or less the same as 2's. Avoid obstacles, collect the minimum amount of rings, and be rewarded with a Chaos Emerald. Or have your ego bruised, whichever comes first. These stages start off pretty easy, but quickly ramp up in difficulty, which mirrors the rest of the game. You can only get 1 emerald per zone, so there's always a consistent increase in difficulty, so the challenge of the special stages typically matches that of the zone itself. There's some pretty cool QTEs in these stages you can do that are fun and totally different from what the rest of the game has. Watching yourself react at lightning speed just to complete them, or doing small tricks at the top of the half pipe and just all around being hot is pretty cool. It's also a beautiful use of the DS's touchscreen, more on that later though. These stages show that the game isn't afraid to change it up and stand out, and again, require enough skill that it feels euphoric to perfect. Let's just say I failed Special Stage 7 one too many times and dedicated my free time to nailing each and every one. Moving on, while the gameplay and mechanics are very fun and pretty unique for the time, Rush is much more than that. Rush's very appearance is beyond beautiful. Everything is vibrant and easy to get entranced by, whether it's your first or 100th time playing. First of all, the levels do much more for Rush than just act as a location. It's chock full of eye candy. I've said multiple times before that 2D Sonic games typically have their levels follow a certain formula. Jungle or forest themed levels, casino themed levels, sky themed levels, you see levels like this all the time. However, I don't believe the lack of theme diversity hurts the game. If anything, it presents how Rush still manages to be creative in spite of this. There isn't a single level that looks uninteresting, whether that be regarding the color or design. Some zones, such as Mirage Road, may look like a Sandopolis copy until the level actually starts. The color palette obviously consists of yellows, oranges, and various tans, but surprisingly has some blues and reds to help it stand out more. Colors are very, very important and not only play an important role in conveying information, but also influencing people's moods. For example, green often symbolizes hope, relaxation, and overall positivity, which may be why it's used in the very first level of the game. Back on topic, at the top of Mirage Road, there are what look to be hieroglyphs etched into the sandy stone, and just outside you're able to see pillars and statues. The depths of the zone are ancient, seemingly untouched after many years, but still polished without a hint of dust to be seen. There are giant hands that guide you from one place to another, sand slides that suck you in and spit you out, and hails of stone falling from the sky. Every zone in the game not only offers a new change of scenery, but also gimmicks and features. Leafstorm has vines that swing you around and shoot you up with momentum. Water Palace has giant fans that whisk you away, and water pumps that shoot you high into the air. Night Carnival has these gaudy, pendulum-looking things that zip you from one side of an area to another. Huge Crisis has you riding on jet-powered sleds. Altitude Limit has cool parachute and gliding sections. And lastly, Deadline has zero gravity and hazardous rockets. There is no level that looks or acts the same. You've got waterfalls and gorgeous architecture, grind rails over certain depth, billboards with the main characters' names and faces on it, like how cool is that? Kind of an off note, but I really like how the zone map opens up the world and makes it feel like you're actually covering some ground. It looks super pretty and gives levels more visual depth. Anyway, the level's colors are stimulating and exciting, and so are the gimmicks, most of the time. Even things technically outside of the levels have designs that are quite meaningful and have thought put into them that you may not see at a first glance, such as the zone's title cards. They're all unique stage by stage and offer some subtle style, if you catch it. For example, the design for Leafstorm here is sharp, much like the grass and branches present in a run-through forest. On the flip side, Water Palace's title card has designs that are wavy and smooth, much like water. There are many ways for the designs on the other zone's title cards to be interpreted, and it's so overlooked that it's almost criminal. Let me just say, this was not something I originally noticed even after playing the game countless times over the course of 14 years, and there's still more I want to talk about regarding the levels. You thought I was done? Bosses and a good chunk of enemies are also unique zone by zone, and they all look fantastic. I mean, there's only so much you can do when most badniks resemble Eggman or other things seen in the series before, but I can appreciate how deliberate the designs are. Like in Heroes, badniks typically resemble Eggman, and while most have similar features, they never look too alike. From what I've seen, the badniks that look the most unique and unlike the rest attack differently and require different approaches. Badniks that do resemble Eggman don't typically require much thought from the player regarding approach, though each attack is different assuming the player isn't boosting through them. If that's the case, paying attention to color and design and/or design deviation is kinda important. For example, the egg pawn looks like literally every other egg pawn in the series, and with this familiar design comes an easy, familiar solution to dealing with them. Badniks that are purple or gray are typically much more aggressive and use ranged weapons, requiring a bit more finesse or quick reaction time. Maybe I was reading too much into it though, especially since the bosses are so much more interesting and help Rush stand out a lot more. Egghammer is the first boss in the game, and honestly that's pretty evident just by how it looks. Its design is very impractical, it looks a lot like a snake. It also has no arms to help it fight, just kinda wiggles around. The claws it uses to latch onto and carry its head look like fangs, very unintimidating fangs. Yellow is a happy color, and not inherently intimidating, but also acts as a color that recommends caution. The red in its design is a warning to not underestimate it. This may be the first boss, but certain mistakes can and will lead to instant death. On the contrary, the Egg King, the second to last boss in the game, is less cute and impractical looking and is not inspired by anything environmentally speaking, rather it's just a representation of the Eggman's growing frustration. It's much more soldier-like, with padding in its shoulders and a broad chest, durable, almost as if it's wearing armor, and expectedly doesn't go down easily. Its arms are giant, blocky, and imposing, perfect for crushing and doing some real damage. It has more spiked, jagged edges, it's harder to reach a weak spot, and in my opinion, it's the scariest looking boss in the game. The colors of its exterior almost seem to combine a bunch with the colors found in many badniks in the game. A true culmination of intricate design and intelligence. I believe the growing complexity in the designs references the Eggmans and their style, arrogance, and obstinance. Alongside the verve of the game comes the subtle horror that comes from the Eggman's plans and contraptions. The bosses almost look like cool toys, and it makes sense considering that's what the Eggmans use them as. Tools for domination, entertainment, and feeling superior. Sure, that bit's been done before, but I do like the cocky but menacing aura the Eggmans have to offer in this game a lot. Everything looks so cool, and it's not like anything you'll find in the other games. Damn, I spent a lot more time talking about them than I meant to. Don't mind me, just reading too much into things. Again. The levels and bosses that come with them only add to the already ridiculous amounts of flair the game has, but that's not all. Typically, when people think of how a game looks, they're thinking of the levels, bosses, and cutscenes. The thing that draws me into Rush again and again is how dope the overall design of the UI is. The text boxes are blocky and somehow still futuristic and hip, though I'm always a sucker for retrofuturism. Elements are also very on point, with more cute and thoughtful logos and symbols that it knows what to do with. The colors are also pretty eye-catching and make the game so much more special. It reminds me a bit of the Advanced series, but with hotter, more popping colors, you know? Even the menus have new poses and sprites added for the characters, and one thing I love to see in games is variety, even if it's only a little. Even the icons on the DS home menu look awesome. Hell, the game being on the DS only makes it that much more cool. In addition to the UI and its charmingly outdated take on futurism, the DS has a similar vibe. It could also make anything look better. It's seen as a favorite amongst the general public, and people love it for its unique look and innovation. In short, it's the people's princess in console form. It fits Sonic Rush very well, and I honestly can't see it being on any other console. I don't want to be one of those people, and I don't know what it is, but there's just something, I don't know, different about the games released on the DS. No idea, but I do know that the cutscenes and models for the game are super cool. The animated cutscenes are well done and add so much personality to the characters, like Blaze running away after meeting Sonic for the first time, or the two of them transforming into their super forms. It's so cool. The text-based cutscenes are just as charming, with characters showing much more expression than you think they would. The text boxes themselves and the composition of the cutscene also remind me of what you'd normally see in a comic book. A really bare-bones comic book, but that doesn't matter. Then you have the art for the special cutscenes, which is absolutely beautiful, by the way. I love Sonic Channel. It's a shame we don't get to see the art too often in games anymore, which again adds style to Rush, I guess. Even the end credits have sprites not used anywhere else in the game. It just feels like being hit over the head with something new over and over again. Can't say it doesn't feel great though. The style of everything art-wise is great, even if the in-game sprites could have been better. I know that all DS games have that blocky, pixely look, and some of Sonic Rush's graphics are outdated, but that only adds to the charm for me. The game is completely shameless and works to ensure its characters get the very best. Speaking of which, the characterization of Sonic and Blaze offers them both an amazing dynamic. The two are quite different, not just in personality and attitude, but in, well, almost every way. Sonic is carefree, confident, and determined, and that isn't just expressed in his dialogue, but his behavior and even movement in the game. He exudes style with improvisation and excessive yet well-placed confidence. He has a lower hot jump than Blaze, but is able to go faster and has a signature spin dash, thus looks a bit cooler in gameplay. Blaze, on the other hand, is much more serious and cautious than her blue counterpart while still managing to be awesome as hell. She's a character with a lot of panache, even if it's on the graceful side, and exudes style with poise and calculation. She may be slower than Sonic, but has a higher hot jump and bursts into flames when performing her version of a spin dash, which always scratches an itch for me. There are some pretty dope differences in how Sonic and Blaze both move, subtle and not so subtle, and I absolutely love their dynamic. Their short-lived rivalry is nothing short of interesting, especially with how different their fight is depending on who's being played. While Blaze's fire attacks are much more calculated and look more imposing, they're slower and easier to dodge. Sonic's tornado attacks look careless, but are much harder to avoid and honestly a great metaphor for Sonic as a character. Both versions of the fight are, I suppose. The fight itself is not the only appeal though. Sonic and Blaze, in my opinion, are akin to an unstoppable force and a movable object. Their differences may cause some strife, but ultimately they're still similar in their goals and love for their world, so they come together and learn to peacefully coexist. They've both been through heart-stopping experiences again and again, and came out totally different, but still willing to help those they care about and take on a massive amount of responsibility. Honestly, having two characters as different as night and day, who are also originally on opposing sides eventually fight, work out their differences, and team up to save what they care about is a trope I always eat up. Sonic and Blaze are different in so many ways, and I think that's why Rush's characterization of the two is so interesting despite the story being kinda simple. Both characters are at their best. They're used well and not misconstrued, lacking, or flanderized. They're just written without convolution. Simply put, both characters are so goddamn cool, and the game being on DS only emphasizes that. Observe. That dug its fingers into a certain part of your brain and scratched it until an itch you didn't even believe was there disappeared, didn't it? Okay, last order of business, and I'm sure you saw this coming. The music for Rush is god tier. This section is gonna be short, honestly the music speaks for itself. First off, it fits the aesthetic of the game perfectly. I even think it fits Sonic better than any other game's soundtracks. With the right amount of flamboyance put into the soundtrack, it helps players really immerse themselves into the game more than they might have originally. It's high energy and rhythmic. The game definitely deserves no less than something that gets people charged up. If I wanted to be put to sleep, I'd pop a melatonin. I gotta get hyped. Sonic should get me hyped. Remember what I said about retro-futurism type stuff? The music genre for Rush is a blend of hip-hop, electronic, techno, and funk, something you'll typically only hear in games with Hideki Naganuma as their composer. Many games and samples were used for this game's soundtrack, and honestly helps add a lot of novelty to Rush. For instance, Wrapped in Black samples a few songs and speeches such as Malcolm X's Fire and Fury Grassroots speech, as well as the Watts Prophet's Sell Your Soul. Can't say it's insanely common for a game's soundtrack to use samples from sources like that, but many hip-hop artists incorporate speeches into their songs, which is pretty thoughtful on Naganuma's part. Not only does it sound good, but you can't say it's not distinct. There being different versions of a song based on who you're playing as is great, and also works to fit both Sonic and Blaze, which only makes the soundtrack that much more of an experience. Okay, rant over. The vibes in Sonic Rush are absolutely immaculate. Again, it may not be a flawless game. I say as much in my videos about it, but everything about it, the mechanics, visuals, characters, music, it all just comes together perfectly. It's why for the last 2 decades, it's had a special place in many people's hearts, whether they played the game or not. I first played the game years and years ago at the age of 7, and while quite some time has passed since then, my feelings about the game have remained the same. Despite the game having been released in 2005, it still has so much untapped potential that I think could really push Sonic in a great direction if it were to take more inspiration from it. I'm kinda tired of remakes and remasters too, but something new in the Rush series might be what we need to get Sonic's fucky presence back and provide something unrivaled in presentation. Either way, Rush still has my love and always will, all because it's so cool. That's all it takes. Anyway, I missed posting this video for Rush's 20th anniversary and I'm so sad. Hopefully late is better than never, and I hope you enjoyed this video either way. Make sure to share your thoughts in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe too. This is MPG, I'll catch you later. Peace!